Welcome back to our Knights of the Old Republic lore play series. Last week we covered the basic history of Terrace and we mostly stuck to the upper levels. This week we're heading down to the Undercity to talk about something much darker, the Rakghoul Plague. This disease was seen at multiple points throughout galactic history, but the people of Terrace were by far the most affected. Any infected beings would eventually turn into mindless mutants, and we're gonna have to fight through a ton of them while we try to save a Wookiee from being sold into slavery. So how did the disease wind up on Terrace in the first place? The Rakghoul Plague was originally created by the Sith Lord Karness Mur. He was one of the Dark Jedi exiles that were banished to Korriban after the 100-Year Darkness. The Dark Jedi of that time were all about creating dark side creatures that were under their control. The flesh-eating Rakghouls were Mur's favorite achievement. He created the Mur Talisman through Sith alchemy, which could turn almost any being in the galaxy into a Rakghoul slave instantly. But the talisman had limitations in power. It couldn't affect Force sensitives, and some non-humanoid species were immune. So he created a virus-like plague that the Rakghouls could then spread through bites or scratches. Mur was killed by some of his peers who wanted his talisman, and then other Sith just kept killing each other for the thing. This is why you can't have nice things, Sith Order. This is why you needed Darth Bane to actually help the Sith get anything done by killing almost all of you. So after being passed around for a while, the talisman just wound up in the Undercity of Terrace, probably carried there by a Sith. And then all it took was for some unfortunate person to get too close. They would then transform, and then they would bite or scratch someone else, and then they would, and so on. The Rakghoul Plague went out of control, and since it was stuck in the Undercity, Terrace's government just let it happen. By the time we're here in this game, 60 million people were infected. And of all things, it took the Sith Order to save the Undercity. I guess since the plague came from Sith alchemy, they could figure out a serum. They only gave it to their own troops, so it's not like they intentionally helped anyone, but one of the side quests in this game is to help Dr. Zelka Forn mass-produce the serum. So while we're in the Undercity, all we have to do is loot a fallen Sith trooper and take it back to the doctor.
Help me, please.
Ooh, sorry man. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few and all that. After receiving the serum, Zelka immediately began to mass produce it, which would surely save the people of Terrace. Oh, come on! That whole side quest wound up being for nothing. Another option you have is to sell the serum to a crime lord at a high price. If all these people were gonna die anyway, I could have at least made some money. But I'm going with the quote-unquote canon light side version of this legend story. Actually, the bombardment didn't destroy the serum, and over a long period of time, the Rakghouls were eventually driven to extinction on Terrace. However, before we got here and all this business with the serum, but after the talisman first infected someone, some Mandalorians discovered the talisman of Mur and took it to the planet Jebel, which resulted in about 1 million other infections. A Jedi Knight named Celeste Morn recovered the talisman and entombed herself with it in a stasis box to keep it from infecting any more beings. Then Cassus Fett nuked Jebel from orbit, killing all the Rakghouls there. Of course, Morn's tomb was eventually found, and shortly after the Clone Wars, it made its way to the hands of Darth Vader. He woke her up, and she attacked him and his crew with the talisman, which infected all the stormtroopers. Vader abandoned the ship with Morn inside, and it crashed into a desert moon. About 20 years later, shortly after the Battle of Yavin, Vader leaked word of Morn's location to the rebels, knowing they would seek out the help of a surviving Jedi. Of course, this was meant as a trap to spread the Rakghoul Plague among the rebellion. Morn had grown fairly crazy by this point, but still wanted the talisman to be safe. So she took the shuttle the rebels brought and traveled off on her own. But not before infecting a whole Star Destroyer, which then crashed on the moon. The power of the talisman kept her alive, and over 100 years later, Morn was picked up by the Fel Empire. Thinking they were working with Vader and Palpatine, who were long dead at that point, she infected that Star Destroyer too. Come on, Celeste, stop it. If you want the galaxy to be safe from the plague, stop infecting people every chance you get. The ship was later boarded by Cade Skywalker. He and his friend were infected, but he was able to use his abnormally strong abilities and force healing to cure them both. Morn was impressed and joined them in their fight against Darth Krayt, And she used the talisman again on Had Abaddon. Celeste, for real, cut it out. After Skywalker's group believed they had killed Darth Krayt, Morn asked that he end her life because she was losing her control over the talisman and the spirit of Myrrh. Skywalker obliged, and the talisman then targeted him. He had no interest in its power and destroyed it once and for all. See, was that so hard, Celeste? With the talisman gone, the Rakghoul plague could no longer spread through magic, but only through bites and scratches. Presumably the Rakghouls were only left on Had Abaddon and that desert moon. Holy cow! A piece of jewelry hasn't caused this much trouble since the One Ring, am I right? Man, I almost forgot what we were supposed to be doing we went off on such a tangent, but here we are saving the Wookiee Zalbar. So with that, I'll bring this video to a close. If you want to start the KOTOR lore play series from the start, here's the playlist for it. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.